So we talked about animals that could be introduced in the next 10 years, but what about by the end of the century? Okay, so there is another type of rewilding that people often talk about. It's very, 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 it's not, it's considered controversial because, the controversy comes from, of course, we all know how bad invasive species are, but there is a new type of rewilding that is going on called pleistocene rewilding, and some animals have already been reintroduced because of as a part of Pleistocene rerouting. For example, water buffalo being reintroduced to the Danube Delta, which really is because water buffalo used to live there, like very, very, very recently. Mustangs being existing as wild animals and the rest as well, which we'll talk about them later. And of course, the Bolson tortoise being introduced to New Mexico, which is basically, you know, because there's a group of turtles in America that are basically giant tortoises. There are giant tortoises in America. Not there's the Guapicus giant tortoise is not the only tortoise in the world. That's a giant tortoise. There's also I can't pronounce it, but there's also a giant tortoise in Africa that's been reintroduced to the Seychelles. But today we'll be talking about animals that can be introduced of the Pleistocene rewilding animals. So, what are all these animals that could be introduced? So, we'll be going over a couple of animals. And we'll be doing an animal that is already present in America, and that's the pursuit. So, basically, a pursuit is a pig like animal. Yep. It's an animal, that is very, very similar to a pig. It has evolved very, very similar to a pig. There's like 2 or 3 species of them as well. And of course, if pursuits can't adapt to, of course, more northern areas where they can't handle colder areas, of course, pigs and boars be basically a proxy for them because if they can't, if they don't like adapt to the cold or something, that's basically like the worst case scenario. But I think they would probably adapt very well to the winter environments and the more temperate environments, because they used to live in more temperate environments until, of course, we kicked them out of those areas as well. So yeah, these animals already are found in America. They're found in Texas. They're found in Louisiana. They're found in Oklahoma, and these animals have already been found here. Okay, they haven't already been found here. So yeah, they have basically already been found here. So the next animal I know has been is the horse. Okay, horses actually originated along with camelids in North America. They actually originated in North America as their own kind of animal. And Mustangs already existed, and there's all this debate that Mustangs actually cause harm to the environment, but there's actually people coming out and actually saying that Mustangs can be good for the environment, and they could be restoring the environment back to their original state. So in the future, I think there will probably be a more bigger movement for restoring America's ecosystems, which includes introducing horses to places like Yellowstone and places like that, where horses are allowed to graze, because horses are natural grazers that used to live in North America, and they basically went extinct at the end of the Ice Age. But they have been reintroduced effectively, by humans in the 1500s. I think letting Mustangs be able to roam free instead of being captured by the government is something that would actually benefit the environment and hurt it. Okay, the problem is governments, for example, take stuff to think that but this animal might be too bad for the environment. It's very, very similar to the hippos in Colombia, but hippos in Colombia might actually be bad for the environment, as hippos are very, very aggressive and territorial animals, and will probably hurt the environment of manatees, which are endangered species in Colombia. So that's already a problem. I can see why they want to get rid of the hippos, but unlike hippos, horses are actually already in wild scale rewilding projects in Europe. So they're already found in wide scale projects in Europe, horses and donkeys or otherwise known as wild asses. Yep, that's basically what that's another. The wild ass is not just used for but they're also used to refer to as donkeys, which are also called asses. Yeah, that the English language is weird, but donkeys as well could be suitable for more dry areas of America. Of course, being the deserty areas of America, I think donkeys would probably be more suitable to those areas. So, and horses could be introduced to the Great Plains as well, using horses that are bred for, of course, adapting for more colder temperatures or more temperate climates. Because a lot of the Midwest lives in a more temperate climate, well, of course, you would expect some snow. With some of the animals I've got to talk about, the really might struggle with snow, but they can be introduced to like the southern U.S. and stuff. So next animal is another animal that went extinct a long time ago in America, and that's the lions. So lions used to live in America. Yeah, there were actually lions in America, but they went extinct. Lions are only found in Africa and like a park in India, and I think there are lots of sanctuaries that have lions and stuff, but I think the next step is taking these lions and teaching them how to hunt in the wild. And again, animals that escape as pets like very very quickly learn how to live in the wild. For example, dogs and stuff. They say, "Oh shit, I'm in the wild now. I gotta go eat. I gotta go hunt," and then of course they'll learn how to hunt naturally in the wild. You know, the only problem with lions being introduced to Americas is, yeah, of course, cattle ranchers, because we all know they will have a tough time accepting wolves back. But I think introducing them to like protected areas first, like Yellowstone and places like that, and of course restricting the numbers, but so they don't grow too large until people are more accepting of more animals living in America. Uh, and of course, it can feed on the what it can, and of course, you won't need to call it a buffalo anymore because you have a predator that will keep the buffalo in check. That isn't, of course, there's of course wolves, but wolves are obviously not enough to keep the buffalo in check, and so we don't need humans to call but the buffalo and Yellowstone because there's like 15,000. Yeah, there's like 15,000 buffalo in all of Yellowstone. That's a lot, and I think buffalo should be allowed to roam around outside of Yellowstone. I think that should not be a controversial idea. Yeah, but of course, a lot of people are scared of that because they might, ruin, crops and stuff as well. Well, which is a pretty big, which would be a concern as well. But I think, educating people about, bison and buffalo and stuff and animals and like that would be a much more better option, just going and, living in the 1800s like they still do. So, and also bison could be used as, of course, because there are lots of farms that also use bison instead of cattle, or use both bison and cattle as well. And bison is becoming basically now just like cattle in America. Well, basically, you can use, people even use bison as commercial as well, which means technically bison in the future could be considered a domesticated animal, just like cattle are. They're even already commercially sold, and they can basically, and they're not probably gonna be domesticated, but they can just swim, But people are starting to herd bison just like they are cattle in America. In fact, that would be terrifying. I actually watched the video about it. It's very, very interesting. The people are starting to herd bison and buffalo just like cattle are, but the big catches are allowing them to naturally graze, unlike cattle in a place that allowing them to naturally graze basically as well. So, but yeah, lions would keep a lot of the herbivores in check. I think they'll be introduced later on, but they keep a lot of the herbivores in check. They would keep a lot, and of course you have some other introduced, like you have animals from like Asia introduced. You have animals from Africa that have been released, like for hogs and stuff in small areas. You have, of course, the various types of deers, and they like yeah, if they want like tranquilizing a lion to escape from a zoo, good is a good idea because you never know they might attack like some small town in like Indiana. But putting them on like and of course you have to of course before you reintroduce an animal into a wild, you have to test how they do against the native environment. If an animal completely decimates, the animals, all the animals in the test one, then it's not a good idea. But I think they should do it after they introduce like horses and other big ungulates back to America, which is something that I don't think many people would find that controversial when they realize that these animals used to live here. Number four, camels. So camel is another group of animals that used to be from America, but what extinct 10,000 years ago. There are already two species of camels in South America: the guanco and the vunca, which also became llamas and alpacas, and are one of the few domesticated animals from the Americas. So basically, vuncos and alpacas could be introduced to America, but also dormitory and camels could be introduced to the Sonora Desert, and backstream camels can be introduced to the more temperate areas like the Great Plains and stuff. Backstream camels can be introduced, of course, Alaska as well as backstream camels are very used to living in the cold weather. These animals, would live as well, and of course would be hunted by big predators like wolves. Of course, the other proposed animals, lions, as well, and they could also be introduced to the Yellowstone to have more animals graze on the areas. And also, there would probably be less bison because there'll be other animals grazing as well. Well, but they get the other bison could expand past Yellowstone, like I said already. Number five, animals that could be introduced to America are, of course, capybaras. Capybaras used to be found in Florida during the pleistocene era, and they are now considered. There has been some attempted introductions of capybaras in Florida, but not many have been successful. They're the largest rodent in the world, and they used to be found all across the South. And I think a reintroduction is probably inevitable, considering that they used to be found in South and Florida, they used to be found in Louisiana, they used to be found in Mississippi, Alabama, South Carolina, and all those states as well. The biggest problem with introducing capybaras is Burmese pythons, okay? Because Burmese pythons are, of course, a big problem in Florida, and of course, reintroducing them to places like the Everglades could be a problem if you have to deal with these invasive species. But I think another option could be introducing them to, of course, places like Hilton Head Island, or places like by in Georgia or in Louisiana at the mouth of the Mississippi, as well, because Louisiana has a lot of wetlands as well, and they're the largest rodent in the world, and they used to be found all across the South of America, of North America, and they would be pretty cool animals that would be found out. Another animal that I think would be, pretty unique to introduce is an animal that we already know, the cattle. So, you have longhorn cattle, you have a lot of cattle, and they have been reintroducing cattle into the wild, but there was a strong chance that, cattle-like animals could have roamed around North and South America. There was already tons of feral cattle roaming around, but there also used to be multiple species of buffalo and bison around in America. And these buffalo and bison used to be roaming around. Of course, other than European bison, the other animals that could be introduced could be cattle animals. Of course, there's the more controversial choices because, they're domesticated animals. They might have not been native to here anyways. But, we already have lots of cow-like animals probably been found during the interglacial period, during the Pleistocene, and probably just went extinct, including the various species of bison, and also they could actually prove beneficial as bison, as of course bison and cattle have coexisted, what used to be called aurochs in Europe. So this could be just like Europe's ecosystem as well. And I wouldn't be surprised if America was and of course everywhere used to be had very similar ecosystems in the Americas, similar to Europe, and we could talk about Europe some other time as well. Number 6, the cheetah. Okay, so we all know cheetahs used to exist in America. At least you probably didn't know that. But but you do know the pronghorn. So the pronghorn is an animal that is basically found in America. It used to be found all it's found all across the Great Plains, at least the remains of it. But it's found basically everywhere. Well, it is. It was one of the bigger reintroduction stories. There used to be multiple species of pronghorn, and of course, Tibetan antelopes and tigers could be introduced as proxies for these animals. And also, tigers used to be found in North America as well. But of course, pronghorns are more adapted for colder environments like North Dakota winters. That would be a problem for like empowered from Africa. Okay, they could be found, but pronghorn used to be found all across, America and, the Great Plains. And of course, the reason why they run really, really fast is because there used to be cheetahs in America. Why haven't an animal adapted for an animal? Why have an animal that's adapted to a predator that's extinct? Which further proves that, yeah, there used to be cheetahs in America. There used to be big cheetahs in America. I also have a video series basically about pleistocene in America. It's funny they never bothered the giant beavers that used to live in America, which I don't think without the extinction they can be brought back. So I think a giant beaver would be a very cool animal to see in real life if it did would go extinct. So yeah, there were giant beavers in America that as well. But we have of course all of pronghorn, and I think they could be used to keep the pronghorn in check, and probably other introduced ungulates as well. Well, that were introduced to fill the voids as well, such as horses and stuff, such as horses and other types of antelope, like antelopes that might have been introduced to America accidentally in like Texas and stuff as well. Yeah, there are actual antelope species that have been introduced to Texas. So, number 7, the elephant. So, elephants used to be found all across America, but went extinct, of course, 10,000 years ago. There are 3 species of elephant, and I think using the genetic technology CRISPR can really make elephants, which I didn't really mess with CRISPR yet, which is a technology that they're trying to use, that they're gonna try to use to bring back the woolly mammoth, which would be very interesting to see that. Which all we can really do, I think the best thing you could do to bring back a woolly mammoth is basically bring back an hairy Asian elephant. It isn't perfect, but it's a step in the right direction. Okay, but there used to be various types of elephants in America, including mastodons and mammoths. Okay, mastodons used to be found all across America. There used to be like 4, 5, or 6 species of elephants in America, or proboscideans. I'm just calling them elephants because I don't know. I do not want to have to pronounce the scientific names of the kinds of elephants because and other animals. So yeah, elephants used to be found all across America. And there's 3 species: there's the African forest elephant, the African elephant, and the Asian elephant. The Asian elephant actually used to exist in more temperate areas such as Korea, and also used to be found all in Syria. So it proved that the Asian elephant was a very adaptable species. And you can use CRISPR to bring back some of these lost genes to make the elephants be found more in areas. I think the best places to introduce them is, of course, in protected areas, such as national parks and stuff. There are lots of trees that, used to have elephants. Elephants are a keystone species in Africa, and I think I think the reason why the landscapes used to be more varied instead of the gigantic forest which was kept down by grazers like buffalo and stuff, but elephants were the true landscape masters of North America. Kind of like similar to how beavers are. They were a very, very important animal. And of course, they weren't the only animals that were kind of landscape masters. There were, of course, giant beavers, which are extinct, unfortunately. And maybe we can go, and there's no plan to make the giant beaver de-extinct, so we will have to live in a world of our giant beaver. But elephants used to be found all across America. There were mastodons, there were elephants. There used to be mammoths, there used to be other types of elephants, even like 4-tusked elephants. They used to be found all across America, and they were animals that were found all across America. There were grazing elephants, there were forest elephants, and we already have 3 species of elephants already, as well. And there are already elephant sanctuaries in America that elephants are actually adapting back to the old environment. Of course, it might take several generations for them to teach the elephants how to survive in the old environments. And I think, like other introduced species, they could be they could probably adapt very easily into the environment. And also, considering that elephants are all endangered, I think it'll be a very, very good step for conservation of elephants in case they go extinct in the area as well. Well, with all 3 elephants, I think could be introduced to America, including the African forest elephant, which could be introduced to like Florida and stuff, and like the Everglades, grades as well. So, and of course, Asian elephants could be introduced to the more temperate parts of America, and of course, African elephants could be introduced to places like Texas to be proxies for the mastodons. And of course, CRISPR edited, Asian elephants could be used to replace the woolly mammoth, which went extinct a long time ago. The next animal we're still not done, is the tiger. Why the tiger? Well, we all know the saber-toothed tiger used to be found in America. And of course, the real tiger could be used as a proxy for the saber-toothed tiger. And here's a real known fact. There are more than 10,000 tigers in Texas. Yeah, because in Texas, it's actually legal to own a tiger. I don't know why they don't take those 10,000 tigers and just let them be in the wild where they belong instead of, being forced into tiny cages, which is really, really sad. But tigers basically used to be found all across America, and even Siberian tigers were actually once found across Alaska. So Siberian tigers could be introduced into Alaska. And of course, tigers used to be found in more temperate climates as well. And they could be introduced to, of course, the area that is found in. They could be introduced to basically everywhere in America where saber-toothed tigers used to be found. Which could basically, they could replace the niche that saber-toothed tigers had. And can be found in more forested areas. Meanwhile, lions are found in more of the savanna-like areas. But they could also, because that's how it is. So yeah. Which really means that, lions are actually king of the savannah and tigers are king of the jungle. Whereas everybody says lions are the king of the jungle, even though that's really tigers. It's really swapped. Which means tigers will be found in more of the forested areas like the Northeast, and of course the Rocky Mountains. Meanwhile, lions will be found across the Great Plains. Figuring out, of course, the ungulate areas. Because, of course, if you introduce big ungulates, you have to have big predators to control them. Of course, there's already brown bears, but brown bears are kind of omnivores. We don't have really pure carnivores outside of wolves, and wolves cannot keep all these big ungulates in check. Basically, at this point, you're just asking them to do it. To do all of the work for other predators that, could be introduced there. But you have other animals that can be introduced. For example, lemurs could be introduced to, and monkeys could be introduced to Florida, which there already are monkeys in Florida. Also, parrots can be reintroduced to America, whereas the mock parakeet could be a substitute, could be a suitable proxy to the extinct Carolina parakeet as well. And of course, even though the patches of pigeon exist, the pigeons have been brought from Europe basically already as well. So yeah, pigeons are brought from Europe, and a lot of more recently extinct species can be used proxies for, but we shouldn't let the current species go extinct. I think before introducing animals to the area, as part of rewilding, maybe except for like the horse and elephant, since elephants are very important keystone species, and I think would actually help the environments of America. And of course, horses are a keystone grazer that used to be found all across America as well. And of course, America has done a really good job at bringing back a lot of the megafauna animals. Of course, there's some that are listed as vulnerable, endangered, and some animals even listed as critically endangered. But even then, they're still trying to bring back like animals that are in the endangered status as well. For example, the black-footed bird as well. But a lot of animals in America are not really in any danger of going extinct. I think what we could really do is expand the populations of all existing animals and start experimenting with pleistocene rewilding and bringing back animals that may have been gone long forgotten. Other animals I didn't talk about, like tapirs, jaguars, which are actually planned to be introduced as early as this decade into Arizona, and could be introduced back into places like Florida. But there was a problem introducing, you know, animals to America is, they haven't been. It has been 10,000 years since then, and these animals could become like a Burmese python like invasion, but these could be done under careful consideration. And if the animals do get out of hand, of course, it could tranquilize them and put them onto its sanctuaries and stuff like that, so they can live in peace and not be killed, and of course probably return to their original environments. So that's basically about this video. Goodbye.